Hi guys, I'm Brendan McCormack and welcome to another episode of the Perth Fitfam Podcast, where you get to hear from the best thought leaders and change makers from across the Perth fitness scene. In episode 38, we catch up with my good friend Alice Round, who I can confirm has been on the podcast now 3 times, as we discuss in this episode. And it's just before her workshop, which is coming up on the 6th of July, Binning Your Inner Bully, where you will learn how to stop holding yourself back from achieving a positive relationship with your health and self. She's going to have a very special guest, Sammy Rose. And in this episode of the podcast, we really have a personal chat. I'm good friends with Alice, but it's the first time that I've really heard her story in this detail. So I'd just like to give her a very special thank you for opening up, just for being real, and really giving you guys some insight into having a good relationship with your body and yourself. So I think this one will be especially good for females. And if you do enjoy it, make sure to jump onto iTunes and give us a 5-star review. And make sure to write something in the review as well. I love it when I hear your guys' feedback. It really means a lot and it really helps out the channel a lot too. The Perth Fitfam Podcast is brought to you by True Protein. True is unafraid to cut through the noise of an oversaturated market and break the mold to deliver authentic, all-natural products with genuine health benefits and none of the fake stuff. True have bucked the trend for expensive, overhyped, bad-tasting protein powders and supplements packed with false promises to reinvent the marketplace and create a 100% natural, delicious, quality protein with no gimmicks, nothing artificial, and a completely transparent ingredient list. You can get True Protein online at www.trueprotein.com.au. And if you use the code PerthFitFam10, you'll get an exclusive 10% discount. You can also get True Protein from selected specific retailers here in WA. So if you're having trouble finding some in Western Australia, just shoot me a message and I'll point you in the right direction of where to go for what you're after. And just to confirm, after a discussion on the weekend, I do read that off a script. So sorry if it sounds scripted, but it's a script I made, not True Protein. So True Protein, go check them out, trueprotein.com.au. And I hope you enjoy the podcast, number 38 with Alice Round.
Or more at Shell?
No, not at Shell at all.
Okay,
Shell's
cool.
not here. We're just chatting, we're just hanging out, we're just having a bit of a chat. But how personal can you talk?
I'm fine, yeah.
You cool?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know me. I say enough shit on social media anyway.
Awesome.
What's off topic?
All right, excellent. I love it. Podcast 38. I think I've been lost. Hey, you know what? I'm sleeping 3 times a day at the moment since I've been back from Sydney. Yeah, it's like do a little bit of work, go to sleep, and I just completely lost track of days. So it is Alice Round. We're up to number 38 of the Perth Fitfam Podcast. This is the trilogy.
Yeah.
Is it 3rd time back on?
No, is it second? I think it's second.
Nah, 3rd time. Yep.
I swear it's the second.
Nah, the first one we ever did
was me.
Was you about 2 years
ago? At my
house
with trying to get the
live. And we pressed the button and it went live straight away because we were like pioneers in Facebook.
Did not know
live
what we were
podcasts.
doing.
Yeah, which worked. We've done one since.
No, you were on ours, but I don't think I've been back on yours. So that's why I think you're confused.
I'm going to go through. I reckon it is. So
well, either way, we'll figure it out.
It's either the 2nd or 3rd time Alice has been on. She's always a super popular guest. And coming up on the 6th of July, you have your Binning the Inner Bully.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I was going to say break because I know you got the breakthrough.
Yeah.
And I was going to say break through the bully.
Just like bees, yeah. Binning Your Inner Bully workshop. Yeah, we're going to call it Your Inner Mean Girl, but we thought that sounded a little nasty, so we were like, Binning Your Inner Bully. Yeah, so that's coming up in only a few weeks. Yeah,
with Sammy Rose. So tell us a little bit about that.
So me and Sammy connected. I'm actually her coach, so that's kind of
one of
those things. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
We connected in America, of all places. I was training in Gold's Gym after going to a business mentoring workshop over there, and I was like, that girl looks familiar. She was staring at me. I was staring at her. Lauren Simpson's in the gym. Hattie Boyle's in the gym. It was just one of those days where it was like, this is Gold's. If no one's ever been to Gold's, go to Gold's. You'll go in there and you're just inspired and see people you know. And I just went over to her and I was like, how do I know you? And she's like, I follow you on social media. I follow you, one of those awkward run-ins.
Yeah.
And then we just clicked and we just started talking about, disordered eating with comps and about her past. And she was in a bit of a bad place at that time with her nutrition and post-comp sort of cycle. And we just got chatting and then, came back to Australia and then she got in contact with me to kind of start being her coach. And then we kind of evolved from there. And just a lot of the stuff that she posts about on her social media, I really resonate with, and a lot of my clients resonate with. So a lot of my clients are always like, I love following Sammy. And, you know, you guys, we're different. We're definitely not the same, but we both believe in, I guess, a similar long-term message of, you know, female health and more just self-love than anything. And just similar sort of struggles with body image and that sort of thing over time. And she was a mate, and she's like, I've never been to Perth. And I was like, well, come over. Let's, you know, make it a work trip while you're here. Put it off our tax deductions. And so, yeah, I was like, come over, stay at our new house we've built, and come hang with the dogs, and we'll run a seminar. So that's kind of why we did it. And I also don't think there's enough events for Perth women that are, I guess there's a lot of fitness events, or there's a lot of mindset events, but not a lot of a combination of the two.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in the fitness industry have fucked up relationships with food, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's about.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about that. So you obviously work with a lot of clients yourself one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think the relationship with food or the mindset towards food is one of the biggest issues that you come across?
100%. It's not a lot of the time that there's a better coach than another, and I believe that. I think there's a right coach for the right person, but I think a lot of the time there's bad coaching in the sense that coaches don't address the actual problem. So they'll band-aid the surface level issue by going, okay, well, this person's been on this many diets before. Well, my diet strategy is going to be the best thing for them. Instead of going, hey, why have you failed at 10 diets before? Like, is it the diet, or is it the fact that, you know, you've got a toxic relationship with food, or that your expectations are too high, or that, you know, there's no self-control for a certain specific reason, that there's all these underlying triggers that no one wants to talk about. So I think that it's a major problem. I think that people band-aid their problems by going on another diet. A lot of the time I get clientele come to me and they've bounced from 10 different coaches. And I'm like, I don't actually think you're in the right position right now where you need to be coached. I think you need to maybe do some mindset work or work with a therapist. A lot of the time I refer people to psychologists, because I'm like, me band-aiding it with another macro plan or whatever, however you want to, you know, call it, that's not fixing the root cause. And I think that's unethical coaching. So I think it's something that needs to be spoken about more in the fitness industry. Same with exercise obsession. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, people doing 20 CrossFit classes a week and then eating, you know, keto and 1,000 calories. And it's like, they're saying they're doing it for health or performance. And it's like, really, there's an issue there. So it's a big one. And then I think the big turn for me with being really interested in this area is female health, which is what we're going to talk a lot about at the seminar. Now that I'm over the age of 30, I think I think about it more.
Yeah.
I think about menstrual cycles a lot. I think about infertility a lot. I think about all the women that come to me now with these problems at 30, which when I was a coach at 20, we didn't care about.
Yeah.
And now that women, you know, a lot of my clients are similar age to me, it's crazy how many women's bodies have been messed up and they now can't have kids, or are having to do IVF, having to spend thousands of dollars because of that relationship with food, which makes me really sad. Like,
30 is a magical age, hey. I remember when I turned 30, I went away to Fiji, and I came back a different person. It's like I had time to like reflect on my life, work out where I was going, what I was doing, what my strengths and weaknesses were, and I came back like so self-aware. So my 30s, because I turned 34 last weekend. Ooh, close. Don't let the bald head fool you. My 30s, like how I've approached it mentally are so different to my 20s. Yeah, very, very different.
And it'll probably be again when we're 40, we'll be like, oh, that silly 30-year-old.
Silly little idiot running 100 Ks. So for someone like me who doesn't, I don't really have an understanding so much.
You sound like Sean.
And I don't know if it's just a male thing, or if it's just I don't get it.
Yeah.
So how does someone have a bad relationship with food or a bad relationship with their body?
Yeah.
Like how do they get that, and how does it affect them?
Cool. So I definitely think the two are combined for sure. You don't just get a bad relationship with food and then love your body. Like they definitely, not often, that's probably generalization, but I probably never heard that in all my years of coaching. You generally have a bad relationship with food because there's something you either dislike about your body or yourself. Mm-hmm. Often it may not be body specific, but it might be looks, it might be your personality. So you think if you can control your body, then you'll be a better person, or you'll like this thing about yourself. So I think a lot of it stems from unhappiness to some degree. It always comes back to unhappiness. Most things do in life. Depression, anxiety, again, all stems back to unhappiness. And it was interesting. My partner, Sean, we were chatting about it last night because we're doing an episode in our podcast about binge eating, and he doesn't understand it either because he's never struggled with food, never had a bad relationship.
And he can eat 30 Krispy Kreme donuts and not feel guilty.
Yeah, and you know what? The funny thing is, for me, if that was 10 years ago and I had a box of 50 Krispy Kremes in my house and he'd had 20 left that weren't finished, that probably would have been something I would have gone and binged on. Whereas today, that's not even a trigger, you know? So for me, personally, it all comes back to where I began and my story and my journey with food. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I know how dark of a place it can be and I don't want to see women go there. So I definitely think the simple root cause of all of it is unhappiness to some degree. And then that's going to differ for every person where that unhappiness stems from. And as a coach, you've got to kind of dig deeper and figure out why. And I constantly ask my clients why. They get really annoyed. I'll be like, why do you want to lose weight? They're like, oh, because I just want to look good. And I'm like, but why do you want to look good? And they're like, don't ask me that. Like, you know?
It's really subconscious sort of stuff, isn't it? Like it's buried right in deep there, and it could take years of therapy, I assume.
Yeah.
Even to understand, oh, I did that because
absolutely
I see myself like this.
Even now at 30, I look back at when I had my eating disorders, and I was like, I didn't even realize that was why I was doing it. I had this level of understanding, but I probably needed to go deeper and figure it out. So I think from coming from a place of disordered eating, I can relate and understand women. I don't claim that I know it all. That's for sure. I'm not a psychologist, but I can at least be relatable and help my clients in asking the appropriate questions that probably get them to ask the questions to themselves. Awesome. And I think that's what good coaching is about. It's not about telling someone what to do. It's not about giving them the perfect plan. It's about listening, asking questions, and getting them to find the answers. Because no one else can fix your mindset. No one can tell you how to think.
You can't force someone into it. It's really a personal journey.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my first actual question.
Yeah.
Which is to tell us about your background with body image.
Yeah. So mine started at a pretty young age. About 14, 15, I remember the first time thinking actively about my body image, which may be young to some people, may be old to others. So I remember at 14, this is before Instagram, before Facebook, it shows my age here, all these young 15-year-olds now. And it was actually interesting because I had a conversation with a girl on Instagram the other day, and she said, it's social media that's ruining our relationships with our bodies. I was like, dude, when I was 15, I had these problems. So let's not blame social media.
Yeah.
It may be contributing in today's society, but back then, you know what gave me those disordered? Magazine covers.
Yep.
So I used to walk past the shops. I had my little job and I'd buy my, whatever, used to be like Oxygen back then or one of those magazines. And I would look at the women on the cover and be like, why don't I look like that? And that was where it all started. Then also I would look at things like Victoria's Secret models and be like, why don't I look like that in a swimsuit? I would look at celebrities on TV, Jennifer Aniston on Friends. I would look at all these women, and it didn't matter what stream of media it was. You can have these disordered thoughts from anywhere. And all it came back to at that age was comparison. Was why don't I look like that? And then same thing, going to high school, I would look at other girls. Why don't I look like that popular girl that's getting all the attention, or that girl that's getting all the boys chase after her? And looking back at it, I wasn't an unpopular kid. I didn't get bullied. I didn't have any bad stuff like that. I had a very comfy high school, degree, so to speak, to that regard. But there was always this want for the grass is greener. It was always this want for, well, that girl's prettier than me and she gets X and Y, or this person has this and they're achieving that. So it was constant comparison, constant expectations, constant grass is greener syndrome. And then that stemmed back to, okay, well, mentally, if she looks like that and she's getting all these things in her life, then if I can control my body and make it look like that, I'll get those things in my life.
Yep.
Which as a 15-year-old, that makes sense. You know what I mean? So I think it came back a lot to, I didn't like the way I physically looked, in terms of face, beauty, smile, all of that sort of stuff. Again, I'd look at magazines and be like, why don't I have tits? Why don't I have, I was an athlete. I was a sprinter. I was the athletic kid, and that was how I was referred to at school. So again, it wasn't unpopular, but it was a case of people saying they knew me as the runner. Yeah. You know what I mean? They didn't know me as the hot whatever, and had no boobs. I remember my girlfriends all getting boobs about 16, 17. I was like, when are my tits coming in? Still waiting. So I think a lot of that stuff, at 16, 17, it's a hard age. You're going through where some girls are going through puberty and others aren't. I didn't get my period till I was 17. So it was a case of, I was kind of always waiting to become a woman.
Yeah.
And I never felt like it came.
Yep.
So that was when the eating disorder started, and I tried everything under the sun. So I would read magazines, and it was the cabbage soup diet. It was the keto diet. It was Atkins. It was whatever was in these magazines that celebrities were doing.
Yes.
That was what I started doing. And I premise this by saying I weighed about 50 kilos.
Wow.
So I wasn't overweight, and I'm very clear about saying that to people. But I had body dysmorphia severely.
Yep.
So I thought I was overweight, or I thought I was big. And that's how it all kind of started. And then I tried every diet, and I would last for about 5 or 6 days. And then I passed out once at athletics training, and everyone kind of...
What diet were you on?
That was, I think, the old cabbage soup diet then.
Yeah. My dad used to do the cabbage soup diet, and he'd do it for a few days whenever he felt fat, because he felt like it would bring him
Flush
back
it out.
down. Yeah, and it was because...
And make you so bloated.
just a Gen Pop person gets a hold of a magazine and
Exactly.
says, hey,
That's
man,
all
that's
it
what Hugh
is.
Jackman's doing.
Yeah.
That's what I got to do.
And you got to think, I was 16. I knew nothing. I wasn't educated. I wasn't any of that. There was no social media in a positive sense that would talk about positive dieting or flexible dieting. That wasn't around. So I just did what the celebrities did. And, I tried that for a while, and I would fail epically, and then I would end up failing a diet. So then I thought, okay, and this was really weird to even think about. I used to go online and Google how to be anorexic.
Whoa.
Yeah. So... yeah, there's a big one
That's
for
a
you.
deep Google, yeah.
Yeah, so I would Google how to be anorexic, and there would be all these different things that would come up, and I would try it all, and I would fail.
Do you remember what your mindset was when you were Googling
I
that?
hated myself. I was like, but if I can do this, all these things will change in my life magically.
Yeah, okay.
Which was so weird. And even though I had so much going for me at the time, I was top 5 in Australia in the 400 meters. I had state records. I was an amazing runner, and I was ruining my athletics career, because how can you go train when you're eating cabbage soup?
Were you educated through athletics
Nothing.
at all about this?
Nothing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Nothing at all. I was in like waist development, nothing.
Yep.
I did see a dietitian once at Waste when the eating disorder kind of came out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And they gave me the worst advice I've ever been given, and that is why I do not trust all dietitians, and why I wanted to be a dietitian. She basically said, you just need to eat more food. To someone who has an eating disorder, do you think that goes down very well? I was like, associated, well, eat more food, gain more fat.
Yep.
Like, it was so bad, and such a bad experience for a 16-year-old going in there. And she just wasn't friendly. She wasn't kind. And when you're at that state where you're so fragile, like, all you need is some self-love and someone to give you some confidence, and to say, you have all these opportunities in your life. You have so much for you. You're amazing. You're beautiful. Let's do this in a slow, healthy way, and I'll educate you on food, and I'll explain it to you. So anyway, after the failed anorexia attempt, because I obviously had no self-control, I figured out how to binge and purge. So then I went basically hardcore bulimia for about 2.5 years. So in that time, no one knew about it.
Yep.
So it was about 16, 17 to about 18. And then I didn't lose a lot of weight, which is why a lot of people didn't know about it, because eating disorders can be so hidden. And that's the important thing that I want anyone listening to this podcast to understand, that it can be a very silent, dark place, because I was probably more so eating to maintenance. So what I would be doing was I would eat really healthy during the day. I would only eat protein and a little bit of fats. I would not touch a carb, and then I would completely binge at nighttime and then vomit that all up. Okay. So I was probably still intaking a bit of food. I probably dropped a few kilos. I remember being under 50 was always my goal. So I remember getting to like 48, 49. I'm 164 centimeters with muscle. Yep. That's very small. So that was always my goal, and I'd be happy if I stayed around there. But I knew that I could control my weight by just purging, which is a terrible way to think of, like, it got so bad that I remember turning 18 and going out with girlfriends for pizza. The thought of that would send my control like over the edge. I remember being at a pizza bar, eating some pizza because I didn't want anyone to know I had an eating disorder, and because I just normally wouldn't eat that. And I remember it being that bad, and that was a big turning point, that I actually went and vomited at the restaurant.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was so paranoid that they would smell it on my breath, that they would see something, that I took myself home and I left. And everyone was like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, oh, I feel sick. Yeah. I was constantly telling people I felt sick. It was a really good, good excuse.
Like, how did you feel mentally then? So before, if you're looking at magazines and that's making you body conscious and feel bad to want to Google anorexia, to then spending 2 years of binging and purging internally, how do you feel at that point in time?
You are so low. I had points of, like, I haven't really told anyone this before, but where I wanted to kill myself. Like, you're so low. I remember buying razors and wanting to, like, cut myself. I remember thinking those sort of thoughts, thinking maybe I can distract the pain. And it just got to the point where I hated every single inch of myself because I was so embarrassed about the behavior I was doing. And that's why no one knew about it, because it was so hidden. So you felt
guilty about purging.
You're so embarrassed. Like, it's embarrassing. Like, I was an educated, smart girl. Like, how embarrassing is it that I'm so smart and educated and doing so well at school. I just started a uni degree and a great runner and have all these great things going for me, but I'm closetly hiding this terrible habit that I know mentally is bad. Like, there was no time that I ever thought, like, this is normal. Like, I knew the whole time consciously, like, what you're doing is ruining your life. And how are you ever going to have a husband? How are you ever going to have kids? How are you ever going to have friends that aren't going to know about all of this? So my parents knew I was living at home when I was 17, 18. And one of the big triggers for it was they were getting divorced.
Okay.
So that, looking back on it, was probably a big part of the unhappiness and the depression. And again, this is why I always ask clients what was going on in your life when, you know, these disordered eating
There's usually
happen.
triggers, yeah?
Absolutely. Like, I think it started with the magazines, and then I think because my parents didn't pick up on it, I thought they didn't care. So I was like, how are you not picking up on the fact that your daughter, like, every night is doing this? But then they were going through a horrible divorce and I was just a pain in their ass sort of thing. Like, and my parents are not bad parents at all. Like, you've met my mom, like, she's lovely.
Lovely, Jan.
But she was not lovely back then. So it was a tough time for her in her life. And when you're 16, all you care about is yourself.
Yeah.
You're not in a mindset of, wow, my mum's struggling. Maybe she needs me right now.
You wouldn't have had an understanding of that.
Not at all. Like, and she even said to me once she caught me, like, binging and purging, and she said, you need to stop that. It's not good for you. So if you know a friend with an eating disorder and you think that's going to fix what's been going on, you need to approach them with a kind nature and a compassionate nature and I care about you and I'm worried for you. Then are like, why are you doing that? That no one understands. Like you said, you don't understand it. You're like, why would you do that? It's bad for you. So that kind of continued on. The big turning point, because this is probably the thing that people want to know about, like, how did you actually, like, you know, stop that? Or
so I think you basically covered on, like, how did it affect you, and we'll actually, before we do go that, like, how did that limit you? How did it limit you in life?
So
like,
social
really
settings, absolutely. I would not like to go anywhere that was uncontrolled. So because I still didn't want to binge all the time, that was never the goal. Yeah. But if I ever ate a bad food, quote unquote, that's when I would do it. So if I ate really healthy, I generally wouldn't go to the point of purging. So for me, it wasn't about being super, super skinny, but it was a control method. So I always associated those bad foods with gaining weight. So if I ate pizza, lollies, chocolate, ice cream, anything like that, I'd need to go, like, purge, you know, like, there was no other option. That was like, get it out of your body, you know. And then when I was 18, start drinking. All my friends were gaining weight, and I was like, well, I don't want to gain weight. So every time after I go out drinking, I just purge, or I wouldn't eat. That was the other thing I would do.
But you voluntarily purge, not involuntarily
Absolutely.
purge.
Got really good at it. So, you know, it impacted my social life. I actually had boyfriends the whole time that didn't know about it. Okay. So again, it wasn't a case of me being lonely or single, and that's a big trigger for a lot of people. Loneliness is a huge one that I deal with a lot of my clients, especially in their 30s. Yeah. Females who are single and that are just feeling really alone.
It talks about that comes down to comparison as well, right?
Absolutely,
because they're looking at people getting married, having kids.
That's the be all and end all.
Yeah. If I don't have this, I'm not successful.
When you see it now, really is, well, I'd rather be single than date a loser. Like, you know. So. I had a boyfriend at the time. I hid it from him. I would brush my teeth like 10 times a day. I would, you know, do all these crazy things. So all of that sort of stuff, you're constantly thinking, can somebody smell my breath? Can somebody, you know, see it on my teeth? My teeth started corroding. There was a lot of problems there. I started seeing the health effects. My digestive system was a mess. I could not go to the toilet without laxatives. It got to that point. I started abusing then laxatives as well. I was tired at my athletics. My athletics training went downhill. I wasn't running as well. My coaches were confused. So it impacted on every single area of my life that gave me happiness and joy before that. Even at school, I was tired all the time. And even my first year of uni was a struggle because of just fatigue, like the stuff I was doing. When you actually do purge, which sounds a little more graphic, but you actually get bloodshot eyes as well. So people would always comment and be like, oh, have you been crying? And I'm like, no, my eyes are fucked because I've been vomiting all night. So it kind of can go a lot more of the physiological effects I started noticing, and that bothered me. I didn't like the bloating. Obviously, you're bringing up acid in your stomach, so that's going to cause bloating, that's going to cause digestive issues. I didn't like the way it made me look. I didn't like how tired it made me all the time, and I started seeing all those things, and that was probably a big wake up call. And also, I was moody, I was cranky, I was snappy at people. I just wasn't a very nice person. I'm surprised that my friends stuck around, and I probably didn't take it out on them as much. It was probably more my parents. But you're so unhappy with yourself that you know what, people reflect that onto others. When you're genuinely happy and you hang out with someone else who's genuinely happy, all that is electrifying energy. But if you hang out with someone and they're just in a bad space, no matter what they say, it can rub off on you too. And it's hard, you know what it's like when you've got those friends that are constantly draining or constantly down. And I was probably that friend that did try to hide it as best as I could, but I was definitely short and snappy with people, and I would take things so personally. If somebody commented on my weight at all, oh my God. If someone was like, oh, you look athletic, I'd be like, oh my God, I need to lose 5 kilos. But then the problem was I started getting compliments. So I obviously had lost a few kilos. I had always pretty low self-esteem, so people started complimenting me, and then that kind of almost made it worse because I was
starting to get validation.
Yeah. So especially when I was 18, started going out, attention from boys, all that stuff. And so that was a bit of a problem. So as you can see, it impacts on a lot of areas of your life, but probably the biggest one, and from when I've worked with full-on anorexia clients before, is the social settings. So paranoia about social settings, not wanting to go on holidays. I never wanted to go on holiday because can't control things. Also, I was pretty exercise obsessed back then as well. So if I didn't get my 2 workouts in a day, I would run 10, 15 Ks in the morning, go to athletics training at night, or go to the gym, or sometimes all 3 in one day.
Okay.
So combine that with eating 1,000 calories. I was basically training like a CrossFitter, but with no food in me. So
a recipe for destruction.
Yeah.
Now, how did you how did you overcome? So what were your triggers? When did you realize that, hey, I can't continue like this?
Yeah, so that was when I started uni. So I started studying exercise sports science. I thought I wanted to be a phys ed teacher. So that was always the kind of the thing that I thought I loved, and that was the direction I was going in. And then at the time, I started doing a few nutrition units at uni. So we had to do them, you had electives in your undergrad, and I started doing a few units, and I started learning about food. And that for me was really empowering because, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because without education, how do you know if what you're doing is right?
Yeah.
And when I was doing diet, I didn't know what was right. I didn't know if the cabbage soup diet was better than the Atkins diet. I didn't know what really energy expenditure was. I didn't know energy balance. I didn't know even barely what a macro was back then. I was so poorly educated on nutrition, which is I think a problem with high schools even today, and girls having eating disorders at that age, that you're just so lost and confused and alone. And doing those nutrition units made me really oh, wow, I can actually eat food and, get to a healthy body composition. And then I think it was I started dwindling off it a bit. I was getting better with it. I think I was just happier in a few other areas of my life. I enjoyed uni much more than high school, so I think that was a big part of it too. And then I decided while I'm going through uni, I want to be a personal trainer because it would be a good side job, be really great there. I love health and fitness, be good experience for, what I do. I'm already an athlete. And I started PTing, and I started having to give out meal plans to my clients.
Where were you PTing at?
This was back at a club called Verve Active for women in Claremont. Very affluent neighborhood. Yes. I had some very nice clients, used to buy me lovely Christmas presents. So it was a gym where I used to get paid. Any PTs listening, I got $12 per session. So if you're complaining about what you get paid, that's where I started from the bottom. Now we're here. So, and the bosses there were everyone was on a 1,200 calorie diet. Everyone got the same meal plan. And I started having to educate on diet and just basic stuff. I wasn't a nutritionist. I knew that, but I had to give out these diets, and I had to read a lot of information and all of that. And it made me realize I'm such a fucking hypocrite. I'm telling these women they need to eat more food.
That's the first time you've sworn on the podcast today, by the way.
Yeah, I'm such a hypocrite. I'm a piece of shit. That's what I thought. And I was I'm telling these women that they should be eating 1,500 calories when I only eat 800-900 and I train 2-3 times a day. How am I going to be a role model? How am I going to get anywhere in this industry? How am I going to be a phys ed teacher if behind closed doors I'm a fucking mess? So it was a big switch of stop being so selfish and focus on actually how you can help people in life and how you can move forward. So that was a big light bulb moment. A big one for me as well was when I coached a girl who was 15. So I was 19 at this age, first gym job, had this 15-year-old. Her mum brought her in because you were allowed to train if you were either with a PT or with a parent at that age. So you're allowed to come in. She was 110 kilos at 15.
Yeah. That's
so,
big.
and about 5 foot. So
Yep.
not tall. And her mum was about the same, but obviously bigger. And her mum was horrible to her. And her mum used to come in and literally drop her off and be like, off you go with Alice, pay me 4 times a week to PT her. And she would be like, she's disgusting and fat and needs to lose weight. And the way that she spoke to her daughter made me feel physically sick. And I was just like, oh, just look at you as a role model. You're her role model. Like, that's gross. Like the fact that every day you've got to wake up with your mum calling you fat, even though she's not the healthiest herself. Like, so that made me really sad. And I almost took her on as a bit of a, like, my project.
Yeah.
And I used to take her food shopping. I used to go, like, just spent heaps of extra time with her. Took her down to the boat shed at Claremont, and I go pick out salads with
place.
her.
That's a great place.
Yeah, especially with those Netherlands incomes. So
Yeah.
they would, I'd get mummy's card and we'd go shopping. And it was great because, I was getting paid $12. So I couldn't really do much.
Yeah.
And I just took her under my wing, and I just had such a good experience with her. I helped her lose about 30 kilos, and her mum was the same. Her mum was the same toxic person, but she was like, you're my role model. Like, you're like the person that I looked up to. And like that for me, working with women like that even though some of my clients were like 30, 40 and I was 19 and they saw me as their role model. And I was like, well, I want to step into this role for the rest of my life. And like,
awesome.
That's where I want to be. So I need to sort my own shit out. And
do you still speak to that girl?
Nah, I'd love to know where she is though. Like, yeah.
Let's do a Facebook stalk
I remember
afterwards.
her name was Georgia. So Georgia, I'm coming for you. Yeah.
That's cool, hey? That's really cool.
So that was a big shift. And then after there, I worked at that gym for a good year and a half. And then I was in my second or third year of uni, and I wanted to work at a gym that was a bit more, I guess, athletics performance based. Mm-hmm. So I went and worked at Shredded then after that, which was where we met.
We did meet there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
about 2006, 2007, was it?
Oh, I think it must have been later than that. I reckon it was about 10 or 11.
Oh, so, no, that's when I got back from Sydney.
That's
so
right.
I came here in 2006.
Gotcha.
Then I lived in Sydney for 2 years.
Yeah, because
so it would have been 2010.
I'm sure I didn't finish high school to 2005. So
I'm a little bit older. Yeah.
So yeah, that was where I went then. And, like each workplace teaches you different things. I'm not going to badmouth one workplace or the other, but the great thing that I learned from Shredded was they really had a big focus on training.
Yeah.
And also performance, which was really cool. And then it kind of diverted my attention from food as much. I'd say that big turning point for me was education, number one. Education, and also deciding who you want to be in life. Do I want to be the person that plays the victim? Because I was a victim. I was the person that was like, why don't I look like that girl? Why aren't I that attractive? Why don't I have this? Why don't I have that? My life's so hard. Like, bitch, your life wasn't hard. Like, you had parents, you had a roof over your head, you had, we weren't the most well off, but we weren't poor. Like, you had a pretty good life. Like, you weren't abused, you weren't bullied. Like, get your shit together, but try to tell a 16-year-old that. So
yeah, 100%. You just have no comprehension.
No. So I was the victim, had that full victim mentality, and I just had to, the only person that can pull yourself out of that is yourself. And that was a big turning point. Was I want to be a role model. I'm going to be in the health and fitness community for the rest of my life, and 11 years later we are, 12 years later, so we're here, and it was stepping into the role for the rest of your life. Like,
then what was that process of stepping into it like? Was it a clear break, or did you still have times when you binged?
Definitely, with eating disorders, it's never as clear cut as it's like smoking. Like, it's an addiction.
Drinking, everything.
Yeah. And I think, for some people I'm sure out there can go cold turkey. For me, it was a case of celebrating my wins. So it started with, say, I was binging maybe every night. Then I would maybe binge once a week. Then maybe I would eat a bad food, in my mind a bad food, and not vomit that up. That was a huge win. And then maybe get on the scales and they hadn't increased a lot. That was mentally, like, for me, starting to track progress was a big thing as well. Mm-hmm. And I know that can be a bit of a deterrent for some people. A lot of people in a eating disorder, I encourage, it depends on the client. Some clients I get to weigh themselves, others I do the total opposite. Yeah. For me, it was a good thing because it made me see when I ate food, I wasn't gaining weight. So that mentally was a really good thing. So then what was I going after that? So basically that was kind of the process. Out of it. Then I remember the binges limited to like once a month, once every 3 months. once every 6 months, and they were huge wins. It was
Awesome.
like, you know what, if I can get to there, and then, you know, it was binge free for like a good year until I started competing. so
that was actually my next question, and I didn't
why
write
did I
this
comp
down.
prep? Yeah.
So why did you start competition with that background?
Yeah.
Actually, answer that first, because
Yeah.
then I'm going to follow up with how did that affect you?
So it had been about 2 years, I think, until I started competing. So I started competing when I was 22 or 23. So I think the worst of the eating disorder stopped about 18, 19, or about 19. So it had been a few years, and within that time, I kind of tracked calories. I didn't know a lot about macros still at this point. I was only in like a second or third year of nutrition, where it's not that advanced at uni at that level. And I was still running, but I'd had a few injuries. So that was a problem. I was at the point where I was quite high up. My goal was always to go to the Commonwealth Games and be in the relay team. And I just had a hamstring tear, then I had a calf tear, and then I had like one thing after the next. And then the day before nationals, I had another injury, and I was just like, you know what, I need to actually do some strength training. I was a PT, but I wasn't actually doing a lot of weights, because aths I was training 5-6 days a week, and in season we're actually discouraged to do a lot of resistance training because it can have a negative impact on your running. So I actually started then, we're doing biomechanics, physiology at uni, and I started learning about injury prevention, and I was super passionate about that. So I started training my glutes, which I'd never trained before in my life, and I had no bum, and I wonder why I'm getting hamstring tears, because you got no ass. So all of that started to make sense to me, and I started falling in love with the gym.
Yep.
So the gym, I quit athletics for a while, and I thought it would be a little while, but then I got hooked on competing. So I had a break technically where I wanted to just fix all the injuries. And then I found the gym really convenient, because if you think about it this way, I was a PT, so I was going to work at 5 a.m, finishing at 8 p.m, going to uni during the middle of the day. To fit in athletics training, that used to be at 4 p.m. So it would mean that I actually used to have to go train by myself at 2 o'clock to get to my afternoon clients. And you know what it's like with like CrossFit, when you're training for a sport that's performance-based, it's really not motivating training on your own.
No.
So
you never usually hit the same numbers.
Think about Perth, athletics and summer sport. I would go to Prairie Lakes back in the day, and it was 42 degrees on the track, like at 2 o'clock. So it just got to the point where I was like, my career at the moment is more important, and my uni is more important. I need a break from aths. I'm getting injured. So then I just did weight training for a while, and because I've always been so goal oriented and competitive, it was like the next competitive step. Like I need something that now, and because I'd been so obsessed with how I looked, hey, what if I can be competitive and look good? You know, even though when I was a runner, I looked pretty decent, you know? So I remember seeing Nina and Summer were the first two that I ever, which is so funny that Summer's now one of my best friends, but I remember stalking Summer and Nina, and they worked at Muscleworks, and I was like, I'm going to go into the store and ask them what this is all about. So I inboxed Nina, and she was like, yeah, just come in, hun, like, have a chat about it. So I went in and we had a chat, and she was like, yeah, do it. Like, there's a comp coming up. And I approached Kelly and Marty at Shredded, and I was like, can I do a comp? And they were like, yep, we'll prep you. And I was like, okay, cool. They didn't know about all my eating disorders. But that had finished then. So when I was at Shredded, like, we learned obviously a bit about nutrition. They've got a very different approach to what I was learning at uni. So it was a little bit conflicting. But anyway, first comp, as you do, and as all clients do, you do exactly what your coach tells you. And I was the most compliant client to a T. I only did a 10-week prep. I did IFBB, and I lost like 8 kilos in 10 weeks. Like I got down to 49 kilos. So back then I was about, I think I was like around 60. Got down to 49 kilos. I was so small, and it was a keto diet for 10 weeks. So coming from an eating disorder to a keto diet probably wasn't the best approach looking back on it. But again, I was so hell-bent on the prize. I'm actually surprised that I didn't binge throughout that prep, but afterwards I was in a not a great position. So they don't really believe in well, back then, I'm not going to say what they do now, but back then there wasn't a reverse diet. There wasn't.
It was never spoken about. It was
about.
almost celebrated that when you finish competing, you just binged.
Yeah. It was that behavior. For them, it was also just get back on with the plan. And I was like, well, I can't just keep on no carbs the rest of my life. Like, I'm dying here. Like, I like carbs. They're tasty. Like, so I would just go binge on carbs. And so after that comp was over, I actually really enjoyed the comp experience. I didn't do very well. Now, this was very interesting, a big turning point for me with food. So I went and got feedback from Mike O'Mara after the IFBB show. I think I came 4th or something. Like, I didn't do that well. And I said, what do you think I need to work on? And he goes, you looked so malnourished. He was like, you need to eat more food. He's like, your face was drawn in. He's like, did you eat carbs? And I was like, no, I've been keto. And he goes, you look gaunt. Like you could tell that you were unhealthy. He said, this is a bodybuilding competition. And that was one of the biggest pieces of advice I've ever gotten. And like, that's why I always like thank Mike to this day. He's like, it's not a dieting competition. He's like, you're very good at dieting, but that doesn't mean you're going to do well. He's like, you need more muscle. You need to look fuller. You need to look healthier. I was like, awesome. So after that, I decided to do my own prep. I prepped myself and I started following all these coaches in America. So I started following and I found Mr. Lane Norton. Yes. So I found him on YouTube and I started watching every video. I was like binge watching Lane Norton. This was back in 2014.
Was he talking about flexible dieting at
metabolism.
this stage?
He was talking about metabolism.
But flexible dieting wasn't the buzzword
Not
yet,
so
was
much.
it?
Joe was a little bit. So Dr. Joe was actually Lane's first mentor.
Yeah.
And Dr. Joe was, and I found him as well. So I kind of got into this little American world of finding all these coaches that I'm like, wow, you're so much more advanced than us.
Yep.
And this other guy, Eric, as well, who actually coached me for a bit. And he was flexible dieting. So he was my first flexible dieting
Eric
coach.
Helms.
Not Eric Helms, actually. I can't remember his last name, but he wasn't a nice coach, so I'm not going to talk about him.
One thing I want to point out just quickly before you go on.
Yeah.
So the term "if it fits your macros" came out not long after Ziz died, because where it stemmed from was the guys that have the gym memes page. And there was this thing about if it fits your macros when people would have, like Lane did, the Pop-Tarts and stuff that fitted in.
Yeah.
And there was so much controversy because I come from the bodybuilding background where you had chicken, rice, broccoli. And if you didn't, and maybe oats in the morning, and if you didn't eat like that the whole prep, you weren't going to get lean. So for people like me that came up like that, it was like, no, this isn't going to work. You need to eat clean.
Yeah.
But it was around the time Ziz died, which is probably around 20... Oh, when was that?
About
2012?
Yeah, maybe 13, 14.
Yeah, around that sort of time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that being at expos and stuff after it happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. And it was that whole like, what? I don't believe this. No one believed it for ages. But he wasn't, talking so much about flexible dieting. He was talking more about building your metabolism.
Sure.
And that's what I was really passionate about. And he talked a lot about disordered eating and how you can fix your metabolism. And I knew my metabolism was in the shitter by then. So the coach I actually got in touch with in America was actually a bit more of a bro coach, where they did put me on another meal plan, but the meal plan was more like that. It was more like I had some rice, I had some sweet potato. For me, that was like, oh my God, carbs. Yeah. So I stuck to that. The calories were higher. The coach, I actually found him because his wife was a bikini competitor and she was like my idol and I wanted to look like her. And he was actually a really lovely coach, Greg McCoy, and I still talk to him sometimes now. And
awesome.
Torna is his wife and she was my posing coach. And they helped me. I actually won my first IFBB comp with them prepping me. And he talked a lot again about you need to train like a bikini athlete. He was training me properly with glutes and things like that and specific to the shape and talking a lot more about the shape than when I was with my first coaches. He also had a reverse dieting plan. So as soon as the comp was over, he had a meal plan I went on to and it was just more calories. So it wasn't like how I reverse now, but he had a plan. Like I literally stepped off stage and it was like, cool, you were eating 1,200 calories. Now you're on to 1,500 calories. And then next week we might up it. And he had a structure there that made sense to me. And when I saw that I also wasn't rebounding crazily like my first comps, I didn't binge because I had more food and that was all I needed, a bit of structure. Yeah. So a big change for me was the structure, having a plan and having a plan year round. Mm-hmm. So for somebody with a bit of a disordered eating pattern, a bit of structure helps them because it helps you stop questioning all the things that you think you could do that probably aren't needed. Yeah. I think that the structure depends on the individual. Some people are better with a more strict plan. Some people are better with a much more flexible plan. But I think for that point in my life, if I had have done flexible dieting, it would have almost been too much. Okay. I think going from keto binge eating to a more balanced meal plan was a really good transition to then go to flexible dieting after that. So about a year later, that's when I started with Lane. Okay. So I stalked him enough and then I prepped myself and I did FitX before it was Arnold. So that used to be the IFBB show, the big national show. And I prepped myself and won out of nowhere, first national comp, and Lane was watching.
Oh, awesome.
Stepped off stage and Lane was like, well done. And I was like, fangirling. And I'm like, I've been watching your YouTube videos. And he was like, how do you know who I am? He's like, no one in Australia knows me because this is before he was big. Yeah. And and I was just like, would you coach me? And like, full fangirling. And he was like, did you prep yourself? And I was like, yeah, like I watch your videos and I learn about metabolism and I've started flexible dieting. And I still used to write myself a bit of a meal plan for comp because I actually found that easier. And he goes, yeah, well, I'll help you reverse because I'd never done a proper reverse. And I then got to qualify to go to the World Championships. Cool. So he was like, well, I'll prep you for Worlds. Best prep I've ever had, leanest I've ever been was when I worked with Lane. And Really good experience. He did make me gain a lot of weight. He made me gain about 10 kilos, which was very uncomfortable. But mentally, that was really good for me to go through that period of time because I still was on super low calories when I prepped myself and overtraining and all of that. So, yeah. And then, Lane prepped me. And I've had my random binges with comps, but nowhere near as bad or as much guilt surrounding it. So, just where you're like uncontrollable hunger and you finish a comp and you go out with your friends and you're just stupid. And the next day you wake up and you're like, fuck, I regret that, but not to the point of mentally it messing with me. And I think that's the difference. Like if I don't even like to call it a binge now. I like to call it conscious overconsumption where you're like, I know that was stupid, but like, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. It is what it is. I can move on with life, and I can also look at what happened. And if I don't want that to happen again, I can put in place some action plans. Whereas when you're in that terrible state of it happening all the time, you don't believe in yourself enough to think that you can actually move forward. So since then, I have been proud to say I've been binge free for the last 4 or 5 years, I think, since I've been with my partner. So Sean credits it to him, of course. But definitely, I think a huge thing that's changed is just happiness. I think that's the key driver, happiness and education of the whole thing, and also knowing who you want to be in life and stepping into that role. Those 3 key things. If you're unhappy, don't know who you are, and also like don't know where you want to be at, and you're uneducated, that 4 together, that's a recipe for disaster for somebody with an eating disorder. Yeah.
Now, how do you feel about yourself at this point in time or in your life? Yeah. How do you feel about yourself?
Well, I always still have my ups and downs. I'm going to be honest with people. Definitely not to that degree of wanting to go like binge or anything like that, for sure. I care about myself enough to speak kindly to myself these days. I used to speak really horribly to myself and be like, you're a fat piece of shit. You're this, you're that. No one's going to love you. Like, you're never going to achieve this. You're never going to do that. Definitely speaking to myself in a nicer language and speaking to myself like I would to my best friend. And I think that's really, really important. The language you use in your mind resonates in your behavior. So if you don't believe in yourself, then you're going to run into problems. Kinder to myself. I'm more patient with myself would be a big one. I used to be like, well, I want to be shredded now. You know what I mean? And that's why you go on all those diets rather than going, hey dude, this takes time, like an effort. You're going to have to be patient. You might have to gain some weight for a period of time to then get yourself in a better place metabolically. So it hasn't been easy, I'd say, from a weight standpoint, because I did mess up my metabolism so bad doing that for so many years that even now I have to still diet on quite low calories to get lean. And I can't eat a crazy amount of calories like my partner can and sort of sustain my weight.
He can eat an astronomical amount of calories though, so that's a bad comparison.
Exactly. But like, I mean, now I still sort of maintain my weight on about 2.2, 2.4, which is still not bad. And I don't have an active job. I work online. Like, I train 4 days a week, like walk my dogs a bit. So,
and that's still quite a lot of calories because I eat 2.7.
Yeah.
So for me to eat 2.7,
and you train harder than me.
And sorry, I've only started eating 2.7 once I was prepping for the 100k race.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really not that bad. And I just think, the way I see myself now is like I am proud to step into that role model, I guess, title. And I have staff under me now. I have a team. I have 50, 60 clients I work with on a weekly basis. Like, every day when I wake up in the morning, it's like if I don't feel like getting up, if I feel like having one of those days that we all have where I want to sit in bed or I don't want to go motivate people or go to the gym or whatever, it's like, well, I want to step into that role of who I am. And I think eventually if you tell yourself enough times the thing you want to be, you become that thing. So there's still obviously always room for self-development. I don't think that I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, oh, I'm perfect. But but I'm more conscious and I'm more active in what I want to work on.
Awesome.
So if I'm like, oh, I don't like that about myself, I'll fucking do something about it. Whereas before I used to be like, well, that's just me.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm the victim. Like, I'll blame somebody else. Like, whereas.
Or let it beat you down.
Yeah. Like before, if say, for example, I don't know, a staff member does something wrong. Okay. Because I used to be a manager of like pubs and bars and stuff and work in hospitality. And so when I used to do that, if somebody did something wrong, I'd be like, oh, what a fucking idiot. Yeah. Whereas like now I'm like, well, I'm their manager. So like maybe what could I do that would actively help that person more? What could have I maybe said to them that made them work harder? Take responsibility, I think, is the biggest piece of advice for anybody working on self-development. Like, you can't blame other people. You can't blame your situation. you can't do any of that because it's just a waste of time. Like,
extreme ownership.
Extreme ownership. Yeah, one of my old mentors used to say, don't just take action, take massive fucking action. And that always resonates with me. It's like, you don't just want to just like dip your toe in, like you got to get wet. You got to go all in, so to speak. And that's why his name's Lynn. It was always go all in, you know? So having mentors really helped. I think having people around you that are uplifting people. I think I used to surround myself with a lot of yes people and a lot of people who were probably victims as well. Changed a lot of friendships, changed a lot of where I'd invest my time, invested my time in my own education, mentorships, reading, self-development, all of that, because how are you going to change if you're doing the same thing every day? And I think you're the same. Like, we get along because we're both people that have always got these new exciting ideas. And also, if I tell you an idea, you're not scared to say, hey dude, what about, like, not in a negative way, but you'll be like, hey, have you thought about it doing it this way? Like, you know, and I respect your opinion rather than being like, Brendo's attacking me. Like, what a shit friend. You know what I mean? Like, and I hope the other way around as well, where like you respect each other's opinions, but it doesn't mean the other person's right or wrong. And so I think it's that approach you give to life, really. Like, do I want to be kind to myself and other people or do I want to, you know, be that victim and be nasty and vindictive and all
limit
of that?
Yourself, limit your growth and what you can do to help other people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So what do you have on offer? We have you do three different courses, two for
four technically with comp prep. Yeah.
Okay. So run us through what you do. So there's the breakthrough to success.
Break through the bullshit is what we call it.
The bullshit.
Yeah,
you got to talk me through it. Yeah.
So break through the bullshit. The reason I created that program was because I had a big like meltdown on a mentorship I was doing with Lynn. We were over in Bali and I'd only signed up with him 2 weeks before. This was my old mentor. And we're in Bali and I was burnt out. I was doing PT. I was online. I was all one-on-one time and I had no time for anything else. My life was work and I just wasn't in like the happiest place with work-life balance and it was just a bit burnt. I'd got to where I wanted to be in my career. I was super happy there, but I had no time for myself. And I was in Bali and he was like, okay, you need to create something that's going to help people that you really want to help, but you need to create something that can help more people and maybe bring some more coaches in to help you with the systems and stuff like that. And he made me go back to my story. He made me go back to the bulimia and he made me dig deeper. He made me do some timeline therapy. He made me cry in front of people. And he was like, that's your program. He was like, you need to help people with what you went through. He's like, you need to create breakthrough to help women that have had disordered eating, that are in a bad place with not only their food, but themselves. So breakthrough is break through the bullshit. It's breaking through not only the bullshit in the fitness industry or the fad diets or the yo-yos, all of that, but it's also breaking through mindset barriers. So it's probably the big difference between our program and a lot of other programs is that we do training, nutrition, and mindset. And when we say mindset, it's not wishy-washy. It's like we get to the deeper problems. We even have a mindset specialist in the program. There's 4 coaches, so it's not just me. And it's really in depth in terms of building your metabolism first, building your base first and stripping it back, because that's what I should have been told to do years and years ago rather than just jumping on more and more diets. So we make people actually fix their underlying issues before they actually do any form of fat loss phase, before they do any of that stuff, because otherwise you're just doing the same shit that you did over and over again. You're just jumping on someone else's plan and just expecting a different result, which we know doesn't work. So it's about breaking that barrier and moving forward. So it's a huge program. It's 24 weeks. Because I believe that 6 months is a decent amount, enough time to actually elicit a life change, not just a 6-8 week challenge. That doesn't change your life. And we make it so flexible that if clients go on holidays, if they do things, doesn't matter. We make that work within the program. We want that to be the overreaching goal, that it's not a program you sign up for and that's see your life. It's like you can still go about your day to day. And we actually want to teach you about how you can still hit your goals and maintain your lifestyle. So it's honestly a great program for a lot of people. It's all online. Training's included. So that's really our good base program, which we think is super affordable as well. And then
Team Round.
Yep. So Breakthrough is part of Team Round, but the difference with our Team Round, I guess, one-on-one or VIP coaching is that it is totally customized training programs. The nutrition's still customized in Breakthrough, but with Team Round, it's more for people who want to be, say, like do powerlifting and they want to have a specific strength goal, or they have a wedding and their deadline is this date. It's more for a very set specific goal, or clients with really severe issues. So I work with a lot of women with hormonal imbalance, imbalances, fertility issues, major injuries, all of that sort of stuff really needs that bit more one-on-one customized attention. So then that would be team round. But then obviously as it's more customized, it is more expensive.
Yep.
Always transparent with people about that. And I'll always say if they don't need it, just do breakthrough, you know. And then we have comp prep. So that's probably what I keep myself very busy with these days, is doing a lot of prep. And I love comp prep because I have been through so many bad coaches that I'm like, all I want is, I'm like a mum to the girls. They call me mum around, even though some of them are older than me. And like, they're like, you know, I just want to nurture them and make sure that it's a positive experience, because you hear some horror stories and you would have heard them over the years. And I just want my girls to not only get shredded and look fucking amazing and like some of them win or place or whatever, but I want them to come out of it safely. I want them to, you know, not have a bad relationship with food. I want to make sure that comp prep's very holistic. I do everything. I do their posing. I pick their bikinis. I go to fittings with them. Like, I'm a bit OCD with it because, again, I've had coaches before that didn't tell me, oh, you need to wear jewelry. You need to get your nails done. Like, basic things that add to the whole comp prep experience. So, and then we have our coaching code program.
Yes.
So
for personal trainers?
For PTs, for online coaches. I was getting hit up a lot by PTs, mainly people wanting to transition from PT to online.
Okay.
So getting a lot of DMs about that, being like, hey, do you do mentoring? And I'm like, well, you've obviously listened to how busy my plate is already. Like, unfortunately, I don't have time to do like one-on-one mentoring. Or if I did, I'd have to charge a lot for it because, you know, 2-3 hours out of my week to mentor you would be quite expensive. And for a lot of PTs, they probably couldn't afford that when they're starting out. So we thought, why not build out some systems like we did with Breakthrough and figure out, for me, when I started as a PT in the industry, what were the things that I wasn't taught and how can we teach that and advance these coaches rather than them paying some mentor $5,000 a month like I've done in the past, and give them a experience basically between finishing their course and then maybe, you know, using those big mentors down the line. What's something in that middle ground? Like, our course only costs $700 and it's for 12 weeks. So it's so much value. It's with me and my partner when I say us. So Sean's also been a coach for about 12 years. So the combined knowledge of 24 years, 10 years of university degrees, courses, everything is in that. So it goes through business module, which is written by me. That's the first module. That is probably the golden nugget alone. Like, if you sign up, I guarantee you'll get your $800 back in just savings on your tax deductions. Okay. Yes. So as a PT, nobody educates you on taxation, on GST, on ATO, on PayYG. They don't educate you on any of that. I think it should be part of school, but that's just my opinion. I got hit with that. I remember when I started getting quite more successful and busy as a PT, I got hit all of a sudden with, oh, you need to register for GST. And I was like, what's GST? So I think the whole course talks about knowing your numbers, knowing how much to charge, knowing how to make sure that your profit margins are right, because a lot of PTs undercharge and then they forget they've got to pay tax in your own super and all of that. And then the business module also touches on sales, marketing, social media, a lot in there. So just from that module alone, I can guarantee that your business will improve. And then the next module is training, which Sean wrote. And that's more progression. It really helps with online because it's a lot of program development. It's a lot of structural balance, a lot of biomechanics. So if you've never gone to uni and you've just done a PT course, it would definitely kind of be that gap where you'll do a lot more rather than just anatomy, it's physiology and biomechanics. So a lot of movement, a lot of helpful stuff for rehab and injury prevention. So that's really the training module. And then the third one is mindset, which I know sounds a bit wishy-washy, but I think as a coach, if you're going to work on your own, it can be a tough gig. You know what it's like being an entrepreneur, not that I love that term, but if you work for yourself, it can be hard to get motivated every day. Like, I work from home. I have 2 beautiful dogs. Like, I just want to sometimes just roll around the floor with my dogs all day, but that doesn't pay the bills and it doesn't help people change their lives. So it's about gaining self-motivation, but also the mindset module helps you with your client's mindset. So it's a lot about how to have rapport with clients, how to build communication, how to get your clients to open up to you, how to then that rolls into sales, which I'm not a big salesy person, but generally just how to talk to people, how to have open conversation, honest conversation, and then also goal setting. We do a lot in there, 90-day goals, 2-year plan. A lot of people don't think much more than like the 2 weeks ahead, you know what I mean? So that's the mindset module. But what we are doing is launching the modules individually, because a lot of people have said, well, I just want the business module, I just want the training module. So we are about to do that, which will make each module like $300. So it's obviously cheaper to do all 3, but I want to just do one, go nuts. So yeah, that was a big got them all out.
No, we got one more to go. Last but not least.
Oh yeah, I also
been in your inner bullies as a last plug.
Yes, sorry. So randomly I'll run seminars and workshops. I did a lot of them last year, so I haven't actually done that much this year. But the workshop is on the 6th of July, so coming up very soon with me and Sammy. So if you resonated at all with my story or anything that I've talked about, you don't have to have an eating disorder to come. Like, that's not what it's about, but it's more about self-love and how to gain self-love, confidence. We're also going to educate on food and flexible dieting a little bit. We're not going to talk too much about that, but more so about integrating that in with your life. And then we're going to also talk a bit about female health, because I think that's a big one as well, in terms of, not going to bang on about pregnancy and fertility, but we're going to talk more about the importance of it and things to be aware of, and kind of like, do you know where your cycle's at? Do you actually track those things?
I was going to say, when you said female health, are you going to talk about periods?
Definitely going to
talk
about all the bleeding. Are you going to come?
You are going to talk about periods.
Sean's coming. He can come along. You guys can eat all the food up the back. But yeah, it's the funniest thing is I've got a few male clients that I used to coach a lot of guys, but now obviously I push more towards women. But I've got a few of my clients who've been with me for like 8 years, and they just like, they're on board. And in the client check-in forms every week, it's like, where are you at in your menstrual cycle? And they're like, they're always like, feeling a little heavy this week. So, but it's just going to be a fun day as well. The whole reason we wanted to do it was, look, there's food, there's snacks, even if it's, it's not going to be just one topic. So I'm sure there's going to be a gem for you in there somewhere, and it's only $69. It's for 3.5 hours, and there's food. So really, if you can just eat your like ticket price in food, and you'll probably be content. And you get to come meet me and Sammy. And I think we both work online, and honestly, working online, people think it's like the luxury, but sometimes we get really lonely, like in the sense of, not in like a depressed, sad way, but like I like to connect with people, I think, from PTing for many years. So for us, it's like, hey, we want to meet you as well as you meet us. And if you followed me on social media for years and you enjoy my content, then pay $69 and like come hang out with us. Like, you know what I mean? I think there's so many people that watch on social media, but then sometimes don't get involved. And whenever I've been to things, I've always been like, why didn't I do more of that? Like, why didn't I, you know what it's like? You go to a course and you're like, fuck yeah, why didn't I like jump on that seminar earlier? Or you go there and you meet someone that's like going to be in your life for the rest of your life. So come meet, if you feel a little alone in your fitness journey, I would honestly even come by yourself and meet some like-minded women, because we're going to have some Q&A time at the end, a bit of mingle time, and I think that will be fun as well. So we just want to make it like a positive, you're feeling like shit, come along, 3 hours, we'll pick your spirit up and make you feel good about yourself.
Awesome. Been in your inner bully. Alice Round, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to me ramble and waffle about again.
For the second or third time back on the Perth Fitfam Podcast.
Thank you.
That is it for episode 38 of the Perth Fitfam Podcast. A big thank you to Alice Round, just really opening up, being a bit vulnerable, but giving us some really good insight, even into what an experienced coach goes through. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that one. Make sure to jump onto a Been in the Inner Bully workshop coming up on the 6th of July. And please, if you did like the episode, jump onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review, write something in your reviews. It really means a lot. But until next week or next time, stay tuned for more of the Perth Fitness scene to come.